The Alpha King's wolf clawed at his insides, dragging him through the forbidden forest toward a scent that had been extinct for 2 decades, the intoxicating fragrance of a living omega. Aldrich Blackthorn stumbled against an oak tree, his claws tearing bark as he fought for control. 5 years he'd ruled the 7 packs. 5 years without losing himself to the beast. But now his wolf was winning, and God help him, he wanted to let it. Your Majesty, we should turn back. Marcus, his beta, kept his distance. Smart man. The cursed lands are forbidden for good reason. Shut up. Aldrich's voice came out more growl than words. His nostrils flared, pulling in more of that scent, honeysuckle and rain and something wild that made his teeth ache. Do you smell that? Marcus went pale. It's not possible. I know what I smell. Aldrich started walking again, faster now. The scent grew stronger with each step, a golden thread pulling him deeper into the forest where even moonlight feared to go. His heart hammered against his ribs. 20 years. The plague had taken them all 20 years ago. Every history book said so. Every elder confirmed it. But his wolf knew better than books. The trees grew twisted here, their branches clawing at the sky like desperate fingers. Blackthorn vines covered everything, their thorns long as daggers. Aldrich pushed through them, ignoring the cuts opening on his arms. Behind him, Marcus struggled to keep up. Then he saw it, a tower of gray stone rising from the earth like a grave marker. Blackthorn vines wrapped around it so thick they looked almost intentional, almost like someone had planted them there. Magic hummed in the air, old magic that tasted of copper and ash. That's Priestess Morgana's land, Marcus said. Your aunt's territory. Aldrich's jaw clenched. His mother's sister. The high priestess who'd helped him take the throne when his father fell. She'd never mentioned a tower. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Aldrich didn't bother knocking. His wolf was past courtesy. He pushed inside and the scent hit him like a fist, pure, undiluted, impossibly real. His vision blurred red at the edges. The room was small and circular, lit by a single window high above. A cot sat in the corner, its blanket threadbare and gray. Books lay scattered across the floor, their pages yellowed with age. And in the center of it all stood a girl. No, not a girl. A woman, though she couldn't have been more than 20. Silver streaked through her dark hair despite her youth, and when she spun to face him, her eyes were violet, bright as jewels against her pale skin. She wore a dress that might have been blue once, before time and where had faded it to something colorless. She was beautiful. She was terrified. And she was absolutely, impossibly, an omega. Get out. Her voice came out rough, like she hadn't used it in days. Maybe weeks. Get out, get out, get out. Aldrich raised his hands, trying to appear harmless even as his wolf howled for him to close the distance between them. I'm not going to hurt you. Liar. She grabbed a book and hurled it at his head. He dodged. You're an alpha. I can smell the blood on you. I can smell death. She wasn't wrong. He'd united the 7 packs through war, not diplomacy. His hands had killed more wolves than he could count. But looking at her now, wild and fierce and shaking, he wished for the first time that he'd been a different man. What's your name? He asked softly. Why? So you can tell them where I am? She backed toward the wall, her hands curling into claws. Human hands, but she moved like a wolf. So you can finish what you started? I don't know what you're talking about. Aldrich took a step closer. Wrong move. She lunged at him, faster than any human should move, her nails raking across his cheek. Blood welled hot and copper-sweet. His wolf snarled, demanding he defend himself, but Aldrich held it back. She was scared. She'd been locked in this tower, alone, for God knew how long. She thought he was here to kill her. Maybe she had good reason. Please, he said, catching her wrists as gently as he could. Please, just tell me your name. Serafina. She spat it like a curse. Seraphina Ashwood. And I know who you are, King Aldrich Blackthorn. I know what you did to my family. Ashwood. His aunt's name. His mother's name. Understanding crashed over him like ice water, but he didn't have time to process it. Seraphina twisted in his grip, her teeth snapping toward his throat. He jerked back, lost his footing on one of the scattered books, and went down hard. She landed on top of him, and his blood, from where she'd scratched him, dripped onto the stone floor between them. The tower exploded with light. Aldrich threw his arm over his eyes as blue fire raced across the floor, following patterns he couldn't see. No, not patterns. Runes. Ancient runes carved so deep into the stone they'd been invisible until his blood touched them. They blazed now like stars, crawling up the walls, racing across the ceiling, turning the whole tower into a constellation of magic. Seraphina scrambled off him, her eyes wide with something between wonder and horror. What did you do? I don't know. Aldrich pushed himself up, staring at the glowing symbols. He knew old magic when he saw it. This was beyond anything the current priestesses could craft. These runes, they're a binding spell. A prison spell, Seraphina whispered. Her hands trembled as she touched one of the glowing marks. I've lived with them my whole life. They keep me hidden. Hidden from what? From you. From all of you. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something cracked in her expression. They killed everyone else. My mother, my sisters, everyone at the sanctuary. They said it was a plague, but I heard the screaming. I heard the alphas. Aldrich's blood ran cold. The Great Purge. 20 years ago. Is that what you call it? A purge? She laughed, sharp and broken. We called it murder. I was 15, he said quietly. I didn't know. But you know now. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very small. And now you'll finish it. You'll kill me like you killed all the others. No. The word came out with more force than he intended. Aldrich stood, keeping his distance even though his wolf whined at the separation. Someone hid you here. Someone powerful. These runes, they're designed to mask Omega scent. To keep you safe. Safe? Seraphina gestured at the tower, at the bare walls and lonely cot. I've been alone for years. Completely alone. My aunt brings food sometimes but she never stays, never explains. Is this what you call safe? Your aunt. Morgana. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. His aunt had hidden an Omega in her territory for years. Had lied to everyone, including him. Had let the whole kingdom believe the Omegas were extinct while keeping this girl locked away like a secret. The question was why. I need to talk to Morgana, Aldrich said. No. Seraphina moved between him and the door, her chin lifting with surprising courage for someone who'd been cowering moments before. You'll tell her you found me. She'll move me somewhere else. Or worse. Her voice dropped. Please. I'm so tired of being alone. If you're going to kill me, just do it now. But don't make me wait anymore. Aldrich looked at her, really looked. At the silver in her hair that spoke of too much stress too young. At the violet eyes that held too much pain. At the way she held herself like someone expecting a blow. His wolf had dragged him here, desperate and wild, following an impossible scent. Now he understood why. She wasn't just any Omega. She was family. His family. And someone had tried very hard to erase her from existence. I'm not going to kill you, he said. And I'm not leaving you here. Then what? I'm taking you home. He held out his hand, knowing she probably wouldn't take it. To the palace. Where I can keep you safe while I find out who did this to you. To all of them. Seraphina stared at his hand like it might bite her. Outside, Marcus called his name, worried and urgent. They'd been here too long. Soon others would come looking. Why should I trust you? She whispered. Aldrich had no good answer. He was a king built on bloodshed. An alpha who'd never known mercy. But looking at her now, he knew one truth with absolute certainty. Because you're my mate, he said. And I protect what's mine. Her eyes went wide, and Aldrich realized what he'd just said. What he'd just admitted, not just to her but to himself. Then footsteps sounded outside, many of them, and they both turned toward the door as everything changed. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The footsteps stopped just outside the tower door. Aldrich moved on instinct, putting himself between Serafina and whoever was coming. His wolf surged forward, protective and possessive in a way he'd never felt before. Your Majesty. Marcus's voice, tight with worry. We need to leave. Now. I'm picking up other wolves heading this direction. Aldrich didn't move. Behind him, Serafina's breathing came fast and shallow. He could feel her fear like a living thing, could smell it mixing with that honeysuckle scent until his head swam. Give me a minute, he called back. We don't have a minute. Then make one. Alpha command bled into his voice, impossible to disobey. Marcus went quiet outside, but Aldrich heard him pacing, agitated. He turned back to Serafina. She'd pressed herself against the far wall, as far from him as the small room allowed. The blue runes still glowed faintly on the floor between them, pulsing like a heartbeat. I need you to trust me, Aldrich said quietly. Just for tonight. Just long enough to get you somewhere safe. Safe. She laughed, but it came out broken. I don't even know what that word means anymore. Then let me show you. He kept his voice soft, the way he'd once gentled horses as a boy, before the crown, before the killing. Tell me your name. Your real name. Not just the first part. She watched him for a long moment, those violet eyes searching his face for something. Finally, she whispered, Serafina Silvermoon. The name hit him like a punch. Silvermoon. General Marcus Silvermoon had been his father's right hand, a legendary warrior who disappeared during the Great Purge. Aldrich had been 15, more interested in training than politics, but he remembered the whispers. Remembered his father's rage when the general never returned. Your father, Aldrich said carefully. Marcus Silvermoon. I knew him. Something flickered in her expression. Hope, desperate and dangerous. He's alive? He's still looking for me? The hope in her voice nearly broke him. Aldrich had seen the general's name on the memorial stone, had stood at his father's side during the remembrance ceremony. Marcus Silvermoon had died 20 years ago. But he couldn't tell her that. Not now. Not when she was already drowning. Tell me what happened, he said instead. That night. What do you remember? Serafina wrapped her arms around herself, and for a moment she looked like the 8-year-old girl she'd been. Everything. I remember everything. Her voice went distant, hollow. It was late. Mama was singing in the garden. She always sang when the moon was full. She said it helped her wolf stay calm. Papa was in his study. I was supposed to be asleep, but I'd snuck down to get cookies from the kitchen. She paused, her jaw working. Then the screaming started. People in hoods, moving through our house like shadows. Papa shifted, tried to fight them, but there were so many. I hid under the stairs and watched them drag Mama out to the garden. Tears tracked down her face, but her voice stayed steady. Aldrich recognized that steadiness. He'd used it himself, when emotion was too dangerous to feel. They held Papa back and made him watch. Made him watch while her voice cracked. She begged them. Begged them to let me go, to save me. She said I was just a child, that I hadn't presented yet, that I wasn't a threat. But you were Omega, Aldrich said quietly. Even then, they could smell it on me. My mother's blood. Seraphina's hands curled into fists. A woman came then. I couldn't see her face, but her voice, I knew that voice. She'd been to our house before. She'd drunk tea with my mother and laughed. Morgana. It had to be. She told the others to stop. Said the child was valuable, that she shouldn't be wasted. Then she turned to me. I don't know how she knew where I was hiding, but she looked right at me. She said if I stayed quiet in the tower, if I waited until it was safe, she'd make sure Papa survived. She promised. Aldrich's chest tightened. A child's promise, bought with a mother's blood. And you believed her. What choice did I have? Seraphina's voice rose. I was 8 years old and I'd just watched them murder my mother. So yes, I stayed quiet. I went to the tower. And I waited. For 20 years. Food appeared every morning in the basket by the door. Water in the barrel. Books sometimes, old ones that smelled like dust. My mother's journals, she must have hidden them or someone brought them to me. I don't know. She gestured around the bare room. This was my world. These walls. That window. And every day I told myself Papa would come. That he was still fighting to find me. That it would be safe soon. The ache in Aldrich's chest spread. 20 years alone. 20 years of that promise. No wonder she looked at him like he was a monster. In her world, every alpha was. Outside, Marcus called again, more urgent this time. Your Majesty, please. How many wolves? Aldrich called back. At least 6. Moving fast. They'll be here in minutes. Aldrich cursed. 6 wolves meant a hunting party. Someone had noticed him heading toward the cursed lands. Someone had sent others to follow. He looked at Seraphina. I'm taking you to the palace. To the capital. It's the only place I can protect you while I figure out who did this. The palace? She shook her head wildly. That's where the king lives. Where all the alphas. I am the king. The words hung between them. Seraphina's eyes went wide, then wider. But you said you were 15 during the purge. That would make you 35 now. I took the throne 5 years ago when my father fell in battle. Aldrich watched her process this, saw the moment understanding crashed through her. Your father died that same battle, Seraphina. He went down fighting beside my father. He died a hero. No. The word came out small and broken. No, she promised. She said if I stayed quiet, he'd be safe. She promised. She lied. Seraphina crumpled like someone had cut her strings. Aldrich moved without thinking, catching her before she hit the ground. The moment he touched her, fire shot through his veins. His wolf howled in triumph, in recognition, in desperate need. Mine, it snarled. Ours. Claim her. Aldrich gritted his teeth against the urge. She was soft in his arms, trembling, and that scent, God, that scent was everywhere, wrapping around him like silk. Her heat was building. He could feel it in the way her body pressed against his, in the small sound she made low in her throat. Let me go, she whispered, but she didn't pull away. Couldn't, probably. Heat made Omegas vulnerable, desperate for an alpha's touch even when they didn't want it. Aldrich had read about it in old books, but reading and experiencing were different things entirely. I need to get you out of here, he said, his voice rough. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She looked up at him, and her eyes had changed. The pupils were blown wide, more wolf than human. I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. Then don't trust me. Just hold on. He swept her up into his arms properly, and she gasped. Her hands clutched at his shirt, and heat rolled off her in waves. Every instinct Aldrich possessed screamed at him to lay her down, to ease that ache building inside her, to give them both what they needed. Instead, he carried her toward the door. That's when he saw it. Carved into the stone beside the cot, so small he'd missed it before, a list of names. Scratched into the wall with something sharp, the letters crude like a child had made them. Aldrich stopped, squinting in the dim light. What is that? The names, Serafina said softly. Of the people who came that night. The ones whose hoods fell, or who spoke, or who I recognized somehow. I carved them so I'd never forget. So when I got out, I could tell Papa who to hunt. Aldrich's blood went cold as he read down the list. Some names he recognized, nobles who'd died in his father's war, others who'd risen to power after. Some he didn't know at all. But the last name on the list made his heart stop. Morgana Ashwood. That's her, Serafina said. The woman who promised to keep Papa safe if I stayed quiet. Your aunt. The High Priestess. Aldrich stared at his aunt's name carved in desperate, childish letters. Morgana had helped him take the throne. Had stood beside him at his coronation. Had advised him on everything from pack politics to battle strategy. She was family, the only family he had left after his mother died. And she'd orchestrated the murder of Omegas. Had locked Serafina in this tower for 20 years. Had lied to everyone, including him. The question was why? Your Majesty. Marcus burst through the door, wild-eyed. They're here. We need to. He stopped, seeing Serafina in Aldrich's arms. His eyes went wide, his nostrils flaring as her scent hit him. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible anymore, Aldrich said grimly. Get back to the horses. We're leaving now. But the hunting party will answer to me if they try to stop their king. Aldrich pushed past Marcus into the night. The air outside was cool and clean after the tower's staleness, but it did nothing to ease the fire in his blood. Serafina whimpered against his chest, and the sound nearly undid him. They made it to the horses just as 6 wolves melted out of the darkness. They shifted as they approached, their transformations smooth and practiced. All men, all warriors by the way they moved. The leader stepped forward, and Aldrich recognized him, Captain Thorn from the Western Pack. Your Majesty, we received reports of an unauthorized entry into the Cursed Lands. Thorn's eyes flicked to Serafina, and his expression changed. Confusion first, then shock. What is that smell? None of your concern, Captain. With respect, sire, that scent it's. Thorn's wolf was in his eyes now, drawn by something it shouldn't want but couldn't resist. The other 5 warriors were the same, their bodies tensing, their attention fixed on the woman in Aldrich's arms. Aldrich's wolf snarled, possessive and violent. He felt his eyes shift, felt his teeth sharpen. Stand. Down. The command cracked like a whip. All 6 warriors dropped to one knee, baring their throats in submission. But Aldrich could see the struggle in their faces. Could see their wolves fighting the instinct to challenge him, to take what he held. This was going to be a problem. Marcus, Aldrich said quietly. Ride ahead to the castle. East Wing. Have the servants prepare the tower room and clear everyone out of that entire section. No one goes near it. No one even acknowledges it exists. The East Wing? Marcus looked confused. That's been abandoned for. Not anymore. Move. Marcus nodded and swung onto his horse. He was gone in seconds, racing through the trees toward the distant lights of the capital. Aldrich turned back to the warriors. You saw nothing tonight. You smelled nothing. You were patrolling the border and found it clear. Understood. But Your Majesty, Thorn started. That's an order, Captain. And if I hear any rumors, any whispers, any talk at all about what you think you encountered tonight, I'll personally see that each of you is stationed at the northern border for the next 5 years. Am I clear? 6 voices answered as one. Yes, Your Majesty. Aldrich knew it wouldn't hold. Couldn't hold. The moment they shifted back to their wolves, their packs would sense the change in them, would smell Serafina's scent clinging to their clothes. Word would spread like wildfire. But maybe he could buy a few days. A few days to figure out what to do. A few days to understand what Morgana had done and why. A few days to decide if he was going to let the kingdom burn for the woman in his arms. He mounted his horse carefully, settling Serafina in front of him. She was getting worse, her body feverish against his, small sounds escaping her throat. Heat could last for days, and without an alpha to ease it, she'd suffer. But if he claimed her while she was vulnerable, while she couldn't truly consent, he'd be no better than the monsters who'd killed her mother. So Aldrich held her as gently as he could and urged his horse toward home. Toward the palace where his arranged mate waited. Toward the council who'd built their power on the lie that Omegas were extinct. Toward his aunt, who'd somehow hidden the greatest secret in pack history. Why? Serafina mumbled against his chest, half delirious. Why did she do it? I don't know, Aldrich said. But I'm going to find out. They rode through the night, and with every mile, Aldrich felt his carefully controlled world beginning to crack. He'd united 7 packs through strength and strategy. He'd maintained peace through political marriages and calculated alliances. He'd built an empire on order and law. But Serafina Silvermoon was chaos. She was heat and need and a truth that could shatter everything he'd built. She was his mate, his equal, the one thing his wolf had been waiting for his entire life. And she was going to destroy him. By the time they reached the palace gates, dawn was breaking. The castle rose before them, white stone glowing pink in the early light. Home. Prison. Throne. All of it rested on a lie. Aldrich looked down at the woman in his arms, at her silver-streaked hair and her fever-flushed skin, at the way she clung to him even in her sleep, and knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to change. The question was whether he'd survive it. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The east wing smelled like death and lavender. Serafina stood in the center of the tower room, because of course it was a tower room, because apparently that was just her life now, and tried to remember how to breathe. The fever had broken somewhere during the ride to the castle, leaving her clear-headed but exhausted. Her body still ached with the echo of heat, and every time Aldrich had touched her, even just to help her down from the horse, fire had licked through her veins. Now he was gone, and she was alone again. Always alone. It's not much, but it's safe, Marcus had said before leaving her here. The beta was kind, at least. He'd carried up fresh water and blankets himself, hadn't looked at her with the hunger she'd seen in those other warriors' eyes. His Majesty wanted you comfortable. Comfortable. Serafina looked around the room. It was bigger than the tower in the Cursed Lands, she'd give it that. A real bed with a mattress instead of a cot. A window with glass that opened and closed. A wardrobe full of dresses that smelled like someone else, someone who'd been dead for years, based on the dust. But the door still locked from the outside. She'd heard the click. A larger cage was still a cage. Serafina walked to the window and looked out over the castle grounds. Dawn painted everything gold and pink, and below her, the palace was waking up. Servants moved like ants between buildings. Guards changed shifts at the walls. Somewhere, people were cooking breakfast. She could smell bread and bacon, and her stomach growled despite everything. 20 years she'd waited in that tower for her father to find her. 20 years of believing he was alive, searching, fighting to reach her. He'd been dead 15 years. Died searching for her, Aldrich had said. But was that true? Or just another pretty lie to keep her quiet? The door opened behind her. Serafina spun, her wolf rising fast, but it was just a young woman in servant's clothes carrying a tray. She froze when she saw Serafina, her eyes going wide. I'm sorry, miss, I didn't mean to startle you. I've brought breakfast. Her voice was soft, nervous. His Majesty said you were a distant cousin, recovering from an illness. That we should make you comfortable but not disturb you unnecessarily. A distant cousin. Another lie. Serafina was collecting them like poison. What's your name? She asked. Clara, miss. The girl set the tray on a small table by the door, her movements quick and practiced. She couldn't have been more than 16. If you need anything, just pull that cord there. Someone will come. Clara. Serafina moved closer, and the girl tensed. How long has the East Wing been closed? 5 years, miss. Since Queen Eleanor died. Clara's expression softened. This was her wing. She loved it here, said it reminded her of her home in the mountains. But after she passed, the king couldn't bear to keep it open. Too many memories. His mother. This had been his mother's room, and he'd put her here. Serafina didn't know what to do with that information. The king, she said carefully. He's well regarded? Oh yes, miss. Hard but fair. He united the 7 packs when they were tearing each other apart. Some say he's ruthless, but, Clara lowered her voice conspiratorially. I think he's just lonely. A king should have a queen, shouldn't he? Someone to soften all those sharp edges. I heard he's getting bonded soon. Clara's face lit up. To Lady Vivian Frost. She's arriving today, actually, wasn't supposed to come for another 2 weeks, but she sent word yesterday that she'd decided to come early. The whole castle is in chaos preparing for her. The girl leaned in. Between you and me, I don't think it's a love match. Political, you know. But maybe that's for the best. Love makes people stupid. Serafina thought of her mother, begging for her daughter's life. Thought of her father, dying 15 years into a hopeless search. Yes, she said quietly. It does. After Clara left, Serafina forced herself to eat. The food tasted like ash, but her body needed it. Then she explored her new prison properly. The tower room connected to a sitting area with chairs that had probably been beautiful once, before dust and time dulled them. Beyond that, a bathing room with actual running water. She'd turned the tap on and off 6 times, marveling at it, before remembering she was supposed to be angry. Books lined the walls, hundreds of them. Her fingers trailed over their spines, reading titles about history and magic and science. Her mother's journals had been her only education for 20 years. These books could teach her about the world she'd missed. The world that had forgotten her. Serafina was pulling down a volume about pack law when she heard voices in the corridor below her window. She pressed against the wall, listening. Can't believe she's arriving today. We're not ready. When is the crown ever ready? At least the king seems pleased. Does he? I think he looks haunted. Ever since he came back from that border patrol, he's been different. You're imagining things. Come on, we need to finish the preparations in the great hall before. The voices faded. Serafina stood frozen, her hands clenched into fists. He seemed pleased. Of course he did. He had his political bride arriving, his perfect arranged marriage that would maintain peace between the packs. What did he care about the Omega he'd locked away in his dead mother's tower? The mate bond pulsed in her chest, and Serafina gasped. It had been growing since that moment in the tower when Aldrich had declared her his mate. She could feel him now, a constant presence at the edge of her consciousness. His emotions bled into hers, determination, worry, and underneath it all, a grief so deep it made her ache. She pressed her palm against her chest, willing the bond to quiet. They hadn't completed it. He hadn't claimed her. This was just the beginning of a bond, fragile and incomplete. It would fade eventually. It had to fade. Because Serafina Silvermoon had not survived 20 years alone just to become another Alpha's secret. Aldrich found his aunt in the temple gardens, tending to blackthorn roses. Of course. The woman had always appreciated irony. Nephew. Morgana didn't look up from her pruning. She was still beautiful at 55, her dark hair only lightly threaded with silver, her movements graceful as a dancer's. I wondered when you'd come. You knew I'd found her. I felt the tower's wards break. Your blood activated them. She finally turned to face him, and her expression was calm. Too calm. You brought her to the palace. Bold move. Stupid, but bold. Aldrich's wolf snarled at her casual tone, but he kept his voice level. Tell me why. Why I kept her alive? Morgana set down her shears and removed her gloves with deliberate care. Or why your father ordered the purge in the first place? Both. His aunt studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Walk with me. They moved through the garden in silence, past roses and moonflowers and herbs Aldrich didn't recognize. Finally, Morgana spoke. Your father was terrified of omegas. Did you know that? She glanced at him. Of course you didn't. You were just a boy when it happened. But I remember. Your mother, my sister, she was beta. Strong, capable, perfect for a king. But before her, your father had been obsessed with an omega named Lissa. Aldrich's chest tightened. I never heard. Of course not. He buried that history deep. Lissa was beautiful, powerful, and she made your father into a puppet. He would have destroyed the kingdom for her. Nearly did, actually. He almost started a war with the Eastern Pax because she asked him to. Then she left him for another alpha, and your father. Morgana's expression darkened. He broke. Completely. It took my sister years to put him back together. So he decided all omegas were dangerous. He decided they were too powerful. That their influence over alphas created instability. And he wasn't entirely wrong, Aldrich. Throughout history, kingdoms have fallen because alphas went mad for their omega mates. The mate bond it's overwhelming. Consuming. It makes even the strongest alpha vulnerable. So he killed them all. Aldrich's voice came out flat. Every omega in the 7 packs. Not all. Morgana stopped walking. Some escaped. Went into hiding. But yes, he ordered a systematic extermination. Called it a plague to cover the truth. And everyone believed it because who would question their king? You could have. I did. His aunt's eyes flashed. I argued against it. I begged him to reconsider. But your father was king, and I was just the high priestess. In the end, I could only save one. Serafina. The last true omega of royal blood. Her mother, Isabel, was descended from the ancient Silvermoon line, the bloodline that could trace itself back to the first Pax. Your father wanted her especially dead because she was organizing the other omegas, teaching them to resist alpha commands, to build their own power base. Morgana's voice softened. Marcus Silvermoon died trying to protect his mate. Did you know they executed him publicly? Called him a traitor for choosing his omega over his king? Aldrich felt sick. His father, the man he'd admired, tried to emulate, had been a monster. Why keep her alive? Insurance. Morgana met his eyes steadily. Your father built his kingdom on lies and fear. I knew eventually someone would need the truth. And a living omega, especially one of Silvermoon blood, is the ultimate truth. She's proof that the purge was murder, not mercy. Proof that everything your father built was rotten at its foundation. You were going to use her to destroy the crown. If necessary. His aunt didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. But then your father died in battle, and you took the throne. You were different, harder than your father in some ways, but without his paranoia. Without his hatred. I thought maybe, with you, we could build something better. So I kept Serafina hidden, kept her safe, and waited. For what? For you to be strong enough to handle the truth. Morgana stepped closer. That's what you are now, isn't it? Strong enough to choose between your crown and your mate? The words hit like a physical blow. How did you? Please. You reek of her. And I saw your face when you left the tower last night. You've already bonded, haven't you? Partially, at least. She tilted her head. Tell me, nephew. What are you going to do when Lady Vivian arrives? When the Shadow Council comes sniffing around? When your carefully constructed piece starts to crumble because you can't resist one Omega girl? Aldrich wanted to hit her. Wanted to rage at her for hiding Seraphina, for letting a child believe her father was alive, for keeping secrets that had already cost too much. But she wasn't wrong. Who else knows, he asked instead. About Seraphina? No one. But people will suspect. The wards on that tower were strong, but you broke them. Magic leaves traces. It's only a matter of time before someone puts the pieces together. Then I'll deal with it. Will you? Morgana's expression was almost pitying. Or will you do what your father did? Lock away the truth and pray it stays buried? Before Aldrich could answer, Marcus appeared at the garden entrance, his face urgent. Your Majesty. Lady Vivian's party has been spotted approaching the gates. She'll be here within the hour. Perfect. Just perfect. Aldrich turned to leave, then paused. That lists Seraphina carved in the tower. Your name was last. Because I came last, Morgana said quietly. I tried to stop it, Aldrich. I couldn't save her mother, couldn't save her father. But I saved her. Remember that when you decide what to do with me. Aldrich walked away without answering. His mind was spinning, trying to process everything his aunt had revealed. His father, a murderer. His kingdom, built on lies. And Seraphina, God, Seraphina had every right to hate him. His blood was the blood that had destroyed her family. The mate bond pulsed again, stronger now. He could feel her through it, confusion, anger, and underneath that, a determination that worried him. She was planning something. He was halfway to the east wing when he caught it. A scent that didn't belong, threading through the castle corridors like smoke. Faint but unmistakable. Omega. Seraphina's scent. Aldrich's blood went cold. The servants would have noticed. Anyone passing through this corridor would have noticed. He followed the trail to the gardens below the east wing, the public gardens, where anyone could walk. Where Lady Vivian Frost was currently standing, her head tilted like a wolf catching prey. She was beautiful, as always. Blonde hair pulled back in a severe braid, ice blue eyes sharp with intelligence. She'd been his father's choice for a political bride, and Aldrich had accepted the arrangement because it made sense. Because duty mattered more than desire. But looking at her now, seeing the calculating expression on her face as she examined the garden, Aldrich knew with absolute certainty that he'd made a terrible mistake. Your Majesty. Vivian turned to face him, and her smile was all teeth. I arrived early. I hope that's not an inconvenience. Of course not, my lady. Aldrich moved toward her, placing himself between her and the east wing. Welcome to the palace. It's lovely. Her eyes flicked past him, toward the tower. Though I must say, there's something unusual in the air. A scent I can't quite place. Sweet. Almost like. She inhaled deeply, and her eyes widened just a fraction. How interesting. Just the gardens, Aldrich said smoothly. My mother planted night-blooming jasmine throughout this section. It can be quite overwhelming. Jasmine. Vivian smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course. How silly of me. She didn't believe him. Aldrich could see it in every line of her body. And worse, he could feel Seraphina through the bond, watching from her window above. Could feel her heart break as she saw him standing with another woman, playing the devoted almost mate. The bond pulsed with betrayal so sharp it nearly brought him to his knees. I should go, he said abruptly. Get settled. Marcus will show you to your rooms. Actually, Vivian said, her voice honey-sweet, I was hoping for a tour. I'd love to see the famous East Wing. I've heard such stories about Queen Eleanor's gardens. The east wing is closed. What a shame. She stepped closer, and Aldrich caught her scent, cold and clean, nothing like honeysuckle. I suppose there are many secrets in a castle this old. Many things hidden away in towers. Her eyes met his, and the message was clear. I do hope you'll share them with me. Eventually. After all, we're going to be bonded. Partners. No secrets between mates, yes? Aldrich held her gaze, and for the first time since taking the crown, he felt truly trapped. Vivian knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough to be dangerous. And above him, through the window, he could feel Seraphina's emotions shift from betrayal to resolve. She was going to run. He knew it with the certainty that came from the mate bond. Knew she'd heard every word, seen him playing his political games, and decided she was done being a secret. No secrets, Aldrich agreed, the lie tasting like ash. Now, if you'll excuse me, my lady, I have matters to attend to. He walked away before she could respond, taking the stairs to the east wing 3 at a time. But when he reached Seraphina's door, when he finally unlocked it and pushed inside, the room was empty. The window stood open, curtains billowing in the morning breeze. And on the bed, weighted down with a stone, was a note in the same crude handwriting he'd seen carved into the tower wall. I'm not a secret to be kept. I'm not a tool to be used. I'm going to find what's left of my family's legacy, and then I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. What your father did. What all of you did. Don't follow me. I've been alone for 20 years. I know how to disappear. S. Aldrich crumpled the note in his fist, his wolf howling in rage and fear. She was out there somewhere, an Omega alone in a world that would devour her the moment someone discovered what she was. And Lady Vivian Frost, spy for the Shadow Council, was currently standing in the garden with Seraphina's scent trail fresh in her nose. Everything he'd tried to protect was unraveling. And the mate bond in his chest was screaming at him to find her, to protect her, to hell with the kingdom and the crown and everything else. For the first time in his life, Aldrich Blackthorne understood why his father had feared Omegas so much. Because for Seraphina, he would burn the whole world down. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. Marcus found her in the stables just before dawn, and the look on his face told Seraphina he'd known she'd come. Don't, she said before he could speak. Don't try to stop me. The beta studied her for a long moment, then sighed. I wasn't going to. He moved past her to saddle a horse, a gray mare with kind eyes. But if you're leaving, you're not going on foot. The Silvermoon estate is 2 days' ride south. You'll need supplies. Seraphina's throat tightened. Why are you helping me? Because my father served your father. Because General Marcus Silvermoon was the best man I ever knew, and he died searching for you. Marcus's hands stilled on the saddle. Because I've spent 5 years watching King Aldrich become harder, colder, more alone. And then you showed up, and for one night, I saw him become human again. That matters. He locked me in a tower. To protect you. Marcus turned to face her. I'm not saying it was right. But Lady Vivian arrived early for a reason. The Shadow Council is moving. If they discover you exist, they'll use you as a weapon. The king knows that. So I'm supposed to just hide? Just wait in another cage while he marries someone else? No. Marcus handed her the reins. You're supposed to find out who you really are. What you really want. And then you come back and burn down every cage in this kingdom if that's what it takes. He pressed a bag into her hands, food, water, a cloak. There's a map inside. Your family's estate is marked. Whatever you're looking for, I hope you find it. Seraphina wanted to thank him, to tell him he was nothing like the monsters who destroyed her family. But the words stuck in her throat, so she just nodded and swung onto the horse. She was 3 miles from the castle when the bond in her chest screamed. Aldrich had found her note. The Silvermoon estate had been beautiful once. Serafina could see it in the bones of the place. The elegant archways, the sprawling gardens now choked with weeds, the fountain in the courtyard where water no longer ran. Someone had tried to burn it all, but stone doesn't burn easily. The main house still stood, blackened and hollow, a monument to everything she'd lost. Serafina dismounted and stood in the courtyard, and for the first time in 20 years, she let herself cry. Not the quiet tears she'd shed in the tower, but great, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for her mother's songs, for her father's laugh, for the childhood that had been stolen with blood and lies. She cried until there was nothing left inside her but rage. Then she wiped her face and went to find her mother's sanctuary. The entrance was exactly where her mother's journals had described it, behind the fountain, beneath the carved wolf's head that matched the pendant Serafina still wore around her neck. She pressed the wolf's eye, and stone ground against stone as a section of the courtyard floor slid aside, revealing stairs that led down into darkness. Serafina descended without fear. She'd lived in darkness for 20 years. It couldn't hurt her anymore. The sanctuary was a single large room carved from bedrock, and it was full of treasures. Books lined the walls, but not the dusty old volumes from the tower. These were journals, letters, records carefully preserved and catalogued. A table in the center held maps and documents spread out like someone had been working there just yesterday, not 2 decades ago. And everywhere, carved into the walls and ceiling, were names. Hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. Serafina moved closer, reading. Isabel Silvermoon. Marcus Silvermoon. Elena Nightshade. Thomas Whitefang. On and on, names paired together with dates. Some had a second date carved beside them, a death date, she realized with growing horror. These were the Omegas. All of them. Every single one who died in the purge. Her mother had been keeping a record. "Oh, Mama," Serafina whispered. "You knew. You knew they were coming." She spent hours reading through the documents. Her mother's handwriting was elegant and precise, recording everything she'd learned about the systematic elimination of Omegas. It hadn't been sudden. It had been planned for years, executed with cold efficiency. And the reason? Serafina's hands shook as she read her mother's final journal entry. "They fear us not because we're weak, but because we're powerful. An Omega can bear true Alpha heirs, children who carry both Alpha strength and Omega gifts. These children don't need political marriages to claim their power. They inherit it by blood. And that terrifies the pack leaders who've built their empires on arranged matches and fragile alliances. My daughter doesn't know yet, but she carries royal blood. Not from her father's line, though the Silvermoons are noble enough. From mine. My grandmother was the secret daughter of King Leonidas the Just, born of his true mate, an Omega he loved more than his crown. That bloodline was erased from history, but the magic remembers. The ancient laws remember. If Serafina survives, if she grows strong, she could claim the throne by right of blood. She could end this madness. She could save us all. But first, she'd have to survive. And I'm running out of time to keep her safe." The journal ended there. 3 days later, her mother had died screaming in the garden while her father was forced to watch. Serafina set the journal down with trembling hands. Royal blood. True heir. The words echoed in her head, impossible and terrifying and somehow right. She'd always felt different, even before she'd presented as Omega. Her mother had called her special, her father had called her precious, and now she understood why. She was the ghost of a bloodline that was supposed to be extinct. A sound above made her freeze. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving through the ruins. Serafina grabbed the journal and pressed herself against the wall, her wolf rising to the surface, ready to fight. "She's here somewhere. I can smell her." A woman's voice, cold and refined. "Lady Vivian. Spread out. Search every building. Another voice, male and unfamiliar. The Shadow Council wants her alive, but if she resists, we have permission to subdue her by any means necessary. Seraphina's heart hammered. She'd been so careful, had covered her trail, but they'd found her anyway. Of course they had. She was an Omega, and her scent was a beacon she couldn't hide. She was trapped. Again. The rage that thought triggered was enough to make her see red. No. She was done being trapped. Done hiding. Done letting other people decide her fate. Seraphina climbed the stairs and emerged into the courtyard just as 5 figures rounded the corner. Lady Vivian stood at their center, flanked by 4 warriors in dark leather. They all stopped when they saw her, and Vivian's smile was sharp as a blade. There you are. We've been looking everywhere for you. The woman moved closer, predatory and confident. Did you really think you could run? That Aldrich would just let his little secret slip away? I'm not his secret. No? Then what are you? His mate? Vivian laughed. He was about to bond with me in 3 weeks. What does that make you? A mistress? A pet? The words cut, but Seraphina had survived worse than cruel words. It makes me free. Free. Vivian tilted her head. Is that what you think you are? You're an Omega alone in a world that wants to own you. The Alpha King wants you in his bed. The Shadow Council wants you as a symbol for our revolution. Every pack leader in the kingdom will want you the moment they discover you exist. You're not free, little Omega. You're the most valuable prisoner in the 7 territories. Then I'll make myself worthless. Seraphina's wolf pressed against her skin, demanding release. I'll reject the mate bond. I'll take wolfsbane to suppress my heats. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure none of you can use me. You'd kill yourself to spite us? One of the warriors laughed. That's the most Omega thing I've ever heard. All emotion, no logic. The dismissal in his voice made something snap inside Seraphina. Her whole life, people had underestimated her. Imprisoned her. Lied to her. Decided she was too weak, too valuable, too something to be trusted with her own choices. She was done. Seraphina shifted. She'd only done it twice before, once when she was 12 and desperate to feel close to her mother, once when she was 16 and angry enough to break. But her wolf came easily now, silver-furred and smaller than an alpha but faster, sharper, burning with 20 years of suppressed rage. She launched herself at the nearest warrior before anyone could react. Her teeth found his throat, not deep enough to kill but enough to send him sprawling with a scream. The others shifted too, 4 wolves surrounding her in the courtyard, and Seraphina bared her fangs in challenge. She was going to die here. She knew that. 5 against 1, and she'd barely learned to hunt in the tower. But if she was dying free. The first wolf lunged. Seraphina dodged and felt teeth scrape her flank. Pain bloomed hot and immediate, but she twisted and caught the wolf's ear, ripping hard. Blood filled her mouth. Then the world exploded with light and power, and every wolf in the courtyard was thrown backward by a wave of pure magic. Morgana Ashwood stepped into the courtyard, her hands glowing with silver fire. That's enough. Vivian shifted back to human form, blood trickling from her nose. High Priestess. How unexpected. Is it? Morgana's voice was ice. Did you really think I wouldn't sense the Shadow Council moving on Silvermoon Land? These ruins are under my protection. They always have been. Your protection? Vivian laughed, though it came out shaky. You're the one who imprisoned her in the first place. Why protect her now? Because I'm correcting my mistakes. Morgana's gaze swept over them all before landing on Seraphina, who'd shifted back and was standing naked and bleeding in the center of the courtyard. And because this girl deserves better than to be a pawn in anyone's game, including mine. Another figure appeared behind Morgana, and Seraphina's heart stopped. Aldrich. He looked terrible, wild-eyed, disheveled, his clothes torn like he'd run the whole way here. The bond between them pulled tight as a bowstring, and when his eyes found hers, the relief and rage and desperate need she felt through it nearly knocked her over. Serafina. Her name on his lips was a prayer and a curse. "Get out," she said. "All of you. This is my family's land. My mother's sanctuary. You have no right to be here." "Actually," Vivian said, pulling a document from her coat, "the Silvermoon estate was seized by the crown 20 years ago. It belongs to the king now. Which means he has every right to be here. And so do I, as his future mate." The words hung in the air like poison. Serafina looked at Aldrich, waiting for him to deny it. Waiting for him to choose her. He said nothing. "I see." Serafina's voice came out flat. "So that's your answer." "Serafina," Aldrich started forward, but Morgana held up a hand. "Before anyone makes declarations they can't take back, there's something you all need to know." The High Priestess looked at Serafina. "Your mother's sanctuary. Did you find what she left you? The journals. The records. The truth about the purge. And did you read the entry about your bloodline?" Serafina's jaw clenched. "Yes." "Then you know you have a choice to make." Morgana turned to address them all. Serafina Silvermoon is not just any Omega. She carries the bloodline of the true royal family, the line that ruled before the Blackthorns took power through conquest. By ancient pack law, she has a greater claim to the throne than Aldrich does. The silence that followed was deafening. Vivian's face went pale, then calculating. Aldrich looked like he'd been punched. And Serafina felt the weight of her mother's legacy settle onto her shoulders like a crown made of thorns. "That's impossible," Vivian said finally. "The true royal line died out centuries ago." "It went into hiding," Morgana corrected. Omega daughters were often hidden away, their existence erased to prevent exactly this kind of challenge. But the magic remembers. The old laws remember. And if Serafina performs the rite of sovereignty, if she calls on her blood right in front of the pack leaders, there's nothing anyone can do to stop her from claiming the throne. "She's an Omega," one of Vivian's warriors said. "Omegas can't rule." "Says who?" Morgana's smile was sharp. "Show me that law. Find it in the ancient texts." "You can't, because it doesn't exist. That belief is barely 200 years old, a lie created by Alpha Kings who feared what Omega rulers could accomplish." Serafina's mind was reeling. Queen. They were talking about making her queen. Her, who'd spent 20 years in a tower learning to survive on scraps and hope. "And if I refuse?" she asked. "If I don't want the throne?" "Then the Shadow Council will use your existence to tear down Aldrich's regime anyway," Vivian said bluntly. "The moment the pack leaders learn an Omega survived, they'll go to war over you. Some will want to claim you. Some will want to kill you. Others will want to use you as a symbol for change. Either way, the kingdom will burn. At least if you take the throne yourself, you control the fire." Serafina looked at Aldrich. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read, devastation and awe and something that might have been pride. "You knew," she said to him. "About my bloodline. That's why you really brought me to the palace." "No." His voice was rough. "I swear, I didn't know. But I do now. And he stopped, seemed to struggle with something, then continued. "You should claim it. The throne. Your birthright. Everything my father stole from your family. And what about you?" "I'll step aside." The words came out like they cost him everything. "I'll dissolve the betrothal to Vivian. I'll announce my abdication and support your claim. It's the right thing to do." "The right thing." Serafina laughed, bitter and broken. "Since when do you care about right? You locked me in a tower. You were going to marry someone else while the mate bond burned between us. You're just like your father, making choices for me, deciding what's best, never asking what I want. Then tell me." Aldrich took a step closer, and the bond between them flared. Tell me what you want, Seraphina. I'll give you anything. I want you to stop trying to save me. The words ripped out of her. I want you to stop treating me like something precious and breakable. I want you to see me as an equal, not a mate to be claimed or a queen to be crowned. Her voice cracked. I want a choice. For once in my life, I want to be the one who decides. The courtyard went silent. Even Vivian had stopped smirking. Morgana moved forward and held out a small silver knife. Then decide, child. Perform the rite of sovereignty. Claim your throne. Or walk away from it all and disappear into obscurity. But know this, I have 13 other Omegas hidden across the kingdom. Survivors I've protected for 20 years, just like you. The moment you make your choice, I'm bringing them out of hiding. The world is about to change whether anyone's ready or not. Seraphina took the knife. It was old, the handle carved with wolves running beneath a full moon. Her mother's blade, she realized. The one that had been missing from her father's study the night they'd died. If I do this, she said slowly, if I claim the throne, I do it alone. Not as Aldrich's mate. Not as anyone's partner. I become queen on my own terms. You'd reject the mate bond? Vivian looked fascinated. That's supposed to be impossible. Nothing's impossible anymore. Seraphina looked at Aldrich, and her heart broke all over again. I'm sorry. I feel it too, the pull, the need. But I've been controlled by other people's choices my whole life. I won't let biology control me too. I won't be the Omega who went mad for her alpha and gave up everything. I'll be the Omega who chose herself first. Aldrich's face went very still. Through the bond, Seraphina felt his devastation, his understanding, and underneath it all, his unwavering support. Then I'll stand beside you, he said quietly. Not as your mate. Not as your king. But as someone who believes in what you're going to build. If you'll let me. It was the right answer. The only answer. But it still hurt like dying. Seraphina cut her palm with the silver blade, let her blood fall onto the scorched earth of her family's estate, and spoke the words her mother had written in her journal, the words of the ancient right of sovereignty. I am Seraphina, daughter of Isabel, daughter of Elena, daughter of the true line. I claim my blood. I claim my throne. I claim my right to rule not by conquest, but by birthright. Let the magic judge me. Let the old laws know me. I am queen. The earth beneath her feet began to glow. Magic, ancient, powerful, undeniable, rose up through the ground and wrapped around her like a living thing. It felt like coming home. Like waking up after 20 years of sleep. The silver in her hair spread, streaking through until it shone like moonlight. Her eyes, already violet, began to glow with inner light. And across the kingdom, in 13 hidden locations, Omegas felt the call of their new queen and began to move. Morgana smiled. It's done. The kingdom will never be the same. Vivian took a step back, her face calculating. The Shadow Council won't accept this. They'll have to. Seraphina's voice came out different now, stronger, layered with power. Because I'm not asking for permission. I'm not asking for anything. I'm taking what's mine, and anyone who stands in my way will answer to me and every Omega who's been hiding in fear for 20 years. We're done being secrets. We're done being weapons. We're taking our place in the world, and you can either adapt or get out of the way. She turned to Aldrich. As for you, you're free. Free from the betrothal. Free from the burden of a kingdom built on lies. Free from the mate bond that neither of us asked for. You can keep your crown if you want, or you can give it up. But you don't get to make that choice because of me. You make it because it's what you want. And if what I want is to stand beside you? Aldrich asked. Then prove it. Seraphina met his eyes. Prove that you can see me as an equal. Prove that you can love me without needing to own me. Prove that you're not your father. She softened slightly. And maybe someday, when I'm not so angry, when I've learned how to be queen and you've learned how to be something other than king, maybe we can try again. As equals. As partners. As two people who chose each other freely. I'll wait, Aldrich said. However long it takes. Serafina wanted to believe him. Wanted to fall into his arms and let the mate bond win. But she'd been weak once, had waited in a tower for someone to save her, and she'd sworn never to be that girl again. So instead, she turned and walked back toward the castle, her castle now, by right of blood and ancient law, with her head high and her heart breaking. Behind her, 13 Omegas emerged from the forest, from the mountains, from the hidden places where Morgana had kept them safe. They were all ages, all packs, all fierce and frightened and free for the first time in their lives. They followed their queen toward the palace, and the old order began to crumble. Aldrich watched her go, the partial mate bond burning in his chest like an open wound. Beside him, Vivian shook her head. "You really are an idiot," the lady said, but there was something almost like respect in her voice. "You just lost your kingdom and your mate in one day." "No," Aldrich said quietly, watching Serafina disappear into the distance. "I just found something worth fighting for. A queen who doesn't need me to save her. A woman who's brave enough to save herself." He smiled, broken and proud. "Now I just have to become the kind of man who deserves to stand beside her." As the sun set over the ruins of the Silvermoon estate, the kingdom held its breath. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the Omegas would reclaim their power. Tomorrow, a new queen would take a throne that had never been meant for her. But tonight, in the space between what was and what would be, Serafina Silvermoon stood on the palace steps and made herself a promise. Never again would she be locked in a tower. Never again would she wait for someone else to choose her freedom. She was queen now. And queens wrote their own stories. Even the ones with tragic endings. Even the ones without true love's kiss. Even the ones where the girl saved herself and the Alpha King learned what it meant to love someone brave enough to walk away. The kingdom would never be the same. Neither would they. And that, Serafina thought as she opened the throne room doors and 14 Omegas followed her inside, was exactly how it should be. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.